Come on, Grisha, you gotta save Mikasa and Armin. Spoiler time for Grisha. So what's up guys, Foxen here. Attack on Titan's fans were so happy and confused with the previous episode, but for the latest one, a good chunk was cut out. Just a rough guesstimate, like 25% of the chapters covered got left out. So go ahead and give a colossal thumbs up and ring that bell so YouTube actually works. Surprisingly, this video took a lot longer than the previous manga comparison one. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Right off the bat, got some censorship to kick this off. Recall this lovely Marley soldier that was snapping away at Grisha's fingers? Looks like Grisha got some divine titan revenge. Too bad that this guy got squished off screen. The manga actually showed you glasses right here bursting and popping right in the first page. Perhaps this is already extremely obvious, but I've seen more and more chatter on Japanese Twitter pretty much confirming the stricter guidelines for the network that Attack on Titan is airing on. Even the bloody remains being tossed is done off screen for the anime. Come on, give us a little something. For Kruger's Attack Titan here, the anime gives you this visual confirmation that his Titan has green eyes. Looks like green glowing eyes by default. It's not like this guy was raging out or in any type of real battle. Previously, you have seen Eren's Attack Titan with glowing green eyes, often almost randomly off or on between anime frame shots. Papa Grisha showed you off the green gems when facing against the founding Titan. Notably, Titan Kruger is also missing the Jaeger's family trademark pointy Titan ears. Even from afar, Kruger Titan's body almost matches up with Eren's Attack Titan instead of Grisha. Grisha really had that dad bod going on in Titan mode. Oddly enough, Zeke's Titan form resembled Grisha's Titan much more closely. Really, the only difference between Eren and Kruger's Titan, besides the hair, was the mouth part. Naturally, Kruger and Eren should have had different mindless Titan forms, and then those unique features carried into their special Titan form. Next up, hey, that opening that got left out, since it didn't fit, it now returned this episode. At least that was one reason I found it was so strange. The second really just being how much this episode chopped out. I mean, a minute and a half could have been a couple of still images worth of detail. Unpopular opinion too, I still feel this opening hasn't grown that much on me. By the way, did some people forget what the opening looked like? I've seen more than a few comments this episode asking if Attack on Titan was honoring Pride Month with this opening. You know, just due to the various paint splatters. Anyway, getting into a page and a half cut out. The manga originally gave you more time to wonder about Kruger. You saw the guy going up the stairs, taking off his tie, then a close-up shot of his face. This part here showed his Titan markings in great detail, along with Eren's bloody nose. What really stood out was the unique Titan markings for Eren Kruger, especially this design going into his ears. The other Titan markings you've seen similar to this was only Eren in the anime-only Attack on Titan Season 1 finale. Back then, those really looked like burn marks. Since then, Isayama and the anime team have changed the design. So for this episode, why was this cut out? It's not like the anime still didn't show you the markings on Eren's ears, it just didn't highlight it. For the actual nosebleed here, I brought up how Eren had that nosebleed in the Uprising arc. That was really only after Eren supposedly had been overusing his Titan powers. Around that time, Eren should have been about only 5 years into his Titan time limit. So what is it with the fricking nosebleed? Shouldn't the Titan powers prevent injuries like this red leakage or heal it? Is it possible that overusing one's Titan abilities negates the healing factor in human form? At least for a short time. Next thing cut out from the anime, after Eren cut the rope, he then asked Grisha if he had any questions. Grisha here really wasn't sure where to start. Naturally, Eren reminded him that he didn't have much time. Perhaps the anime just wanted to speed through it. Next anime cut, almost a full page. Eren right here explained how a doctor helped to keep his cover. Eren explained how the doctor falsified his own records. That doctor had also been pretending to be a Marleyan. Kruger went on to mention how doctors make good spies due to their education and social position. Doctors would also have the required skill set to study Titan chemistry. So right here is where we start the discussion. Is this a retcon? Or simply a detail that's gonna pop up later? Manga readers should have a good idea who this doctor could have been. The anime is now blurring that possibility a little bit. The more important part here is about the Titan chemistry, especially about what it could have implied for the doctor and Kruger doing in the background for years and years. The next panel cut wasn't as important, it was really Eren just listing the things Grisha had done to get to this point. Next up, let's talk about a key detail here. There's nothing changed here, but it feels like this has been overlooked for years. Grisha randomly mentioned how someone like Dina, who was from the royal blood family, could have gotten access to a Titan's true power or full potential. I immediately had to check the English translation of the chapter to double check. The English version of this says full use. In other words, it's rather vague. If you've been watching for a while, you'll recall me mentioning how royal blood most likely unlocks extra bonus features, or special powers or abilities for a Titan shifter. Keep in mind, Grisha was married to Dina, so perhaps Dina let Grisha know a little extra details during their fun sexy time. Unfortunately, with this cut out, does this mean this part of the Titan lore detail is no longer canon? Next anime cut up, you had Grisha asking Kruger why he kept his mouth shut earlier, that Dina could have possibly been spared if he said something. Manga Kruger agreed to this. If Marley had known the truth about Dinah, most likely she would have not been brought to this cursed island. In other words, she could have avoided her whole Titan fate completely. But of course, Kruger needs some spoilers. He knew Dinah should have been on the island. As for a new anime shot, spliced into Grisha and Kruger's conversation, was a shot of Kruger's Titan bathing on the dock. This thing was sure taking its time to dissolve. Notice this thing still looked fully intact, just super smoky. So time for a beach barbecue. Next anime cut stuff up, it looks like some small talk got removed. Eren and Grisha were really just talking about that one day. Kruger thought that perhaps Grisha might have been able to save his sister. Grisha on the other hand thought otherwise. Most likely both of them would have died. To be honest, nothing too terribly important. As for the torching scene, notably you can see the bodies ablaze more now. Really just a horrible way to go. The anime scene was much more effective now, including this close-up shot of young Eren. Even the body shot had this nice detail with the glowing of the fire from what he just witnessed. The anime cut out the detail here how Kruger's father's buddy had saved them before their house burned down. Next anime cut detail, really Kruger mentioning how Grisha needed the Titan powers to even make it to the first wall Maria. If you recall back to the Uprising arc, the anime actually cut out the detail about that day that Keith found Grisha. Strangely, there were fewer Titans on their return to the wall that day. This implied that Titan Grisha had been testing out the new attack Titan on some weak Titans. Then, for Eren Kruger revealing the 13-year Titan time limit, the anime cut out his reason for not mentioning this to their group. Kruger withheld it supposedly so their group would keep hope. If they had known about this, Grisha might have hesitated enrolling Zeke into the warrior program, and surely would have not wanted Dinah to eventually inherit the founding Titan. For a key detail here, there has been a question regarding whether Kruger was actually in his final year, which really goes back to all these guys procrastinating until the final few moments. What really confused some people was Grisha having met Kruger 15 years back. Some people were trying to use this to claim that Kruger was lying about the curse of Ymir, or that this supposed curse was fake. This, however, should tell you something different. 15 years ago would have meant that Kruger simply wasn't the attack Titan back then. In other words, 2 years later after meeting Kruger, that's when that guy inherited the attack Titan from someone else. Who that has been is still a mystery. Switching it over to Eren was his best blonde buddy, Armin. More juicy details cut out here. Anime Eren did mention Ymir, but didn't mention how no one was supposed to gain powers greater than the original Ymir. As a Titan shifter approaches the 13th year, their body weakens, since a vessel has almost finished serving its purpose. Really, two key Titan details cut out here. The first being this concept about not being allowed to surpass the original Ymir. The second, the idea that this Titan shifter is really only this temporary container for the power. A Titan shifter's body becoming weaker has notably only been seen on royal blood Titan shifters in their final year, usually seen as a person rapidly aging. However, then you have examples like Grisha and Eren Kruger that still look nice and fresh on year 13. As for Armin's cut dialogue, Armin confirmed these Titan memories matched up with Grisha's notes. Armin noticed how the Race family was performing their founding Titan ritual every 13 years. This should have proved the 13-year time limit. As for the depressed Mikasa here, the anime did improve on her looking even more dreadful from this Eren dying news. I guess Armin dying too. Next anime cut Titan detail, you did hear how a Titan power should be given to a newborn if the current Titan shifter dies. The anime left out that distance and relationship does not play a factor in this. In other words, this power should be randomly given to an upcoming newborn. This now brings up the question, did the anime now retcon the distance and blood relationship part? Or is it possible that was just not mentioned, since there's really no way Marley could have been able to verify these two factors. As for something new for the anime, those invisible pets are now made visible for the anime. Originally, this was first seen back in Ymir's flashback in season 2. Seeing this here now confirms Ymir plus a certain ass-loving Titan have actually witnessed this scene. In the actual night sky, you can see 8 different patterns, which should eventually connect at a certain center coordinate point. For the actual Titan path concept, this is how the English version of this translated it, and definitely let me know how it's translated for other languages. The Japanese word specifically used here is michi, commonly used for road or street. If you actually picture something like a road, that would help to explain this Titan memory stuff a little more. In other words, it's almost like this Titan highway that's not a one-way street. Everything should be connected, past, present, and future. Next anime cut of this Titan lore. Anime Kruger did mention the subjects of Ymir being connected to this coordinate. At the time, he didn't mention this Titan path concept transcending space and time, or at least this being the opinion of the Titan chemistry research group back at Marley. In other words, once again you have this Titan chemistry part being cut out. But more important is this time and space concept. I was about to ask the Isayama retcon question, but do notice the anime actually included this in the mid-info card about the 9 Titans. Pretty nice variation on the original art piece, by the way. This goes back to my idea about the Titan scientists not realistically being able to reach this conclusion, hence the change. Then for Grisha here, the poor guy really wanted to know who exactly this Ymir person was. The anime changed this up. Grisha originally asked if magic was real, and whether Ymir was actually a witch. Next anime cut up, after Eren and Kruger laid out the possible options of who Ymir could be, the anime left out Kruger questioning other past claims. Marley history claimed there were 1700 years of ethnic cleansing. If that was true, the Marley people should have been wiped out from Earth. On the flip side, you have Ymir supposedly bringing will to human, which is pretty much Grisha's version. That right there didn't sound like any person Kruger had ever heard of. For some of this, I don't mind it being cut since this questionable stuff should be left to the viewer to ask themselves. Although as a negative, it does take away from Kruger himself voicing the validity of this stuff. Next cutout line from Eren and Kruger. Kruger had a line about not being strong enough, this being the reason that he wasn't able to save the others. The others here most likely being Grisha's buddies. Anyway, getting into more censorship this episode, 2 different shots of the Major. The first still really look almost comedic. They literally just didn't draw half of this guy instead of showing the ripped side of him. The next shot was similar, showing the Major from the side, really avoiding the bloody side. I don't think I mind this too much since it was quick. Something you should notice here though is a perfect example of how a Titan could kill a guy completely wrong. Imagine if the Major had the Colossal Titan power, that would have surely been lost. Next anime cut up, the dialogue for more than half a page. Grisha had just been asked if he enjoyed the Titan taking revenge on the Major. Grisha claimed that he was just scared at the sight. Then he reflected on some recent painful events, losing his crazy Eldia buddies, Dinah, and his fingers. Next anime cut up almost a page and a half. Grisha has slowly realized the price he paid dearly for wanting freedom. In the manga, Grisha also apologized, claiming he couldn't hate anymore. Manga Kruger followed this up bringing up Grisha's father. Kruger actually thought this guy was a smart man, who should have known the truth of that day. He simply didn't want Grisha to suffer a similar fate like his sister Faye. Unfortunately, in the end, that failed. Grisha involved his wife and his son, and still ended up on Paradise Island. Overall, nothing that important, but it just made the next line of stand up from Kruger feel kind of awkward in the anime. Next anime section cut out almost another page, around half of it being important stuff. Kruger wanted Grisha to make a vow to him that he would continue to fight and try to restore Eldia. Grisha had to put his remaining life into this. The key part cut out here was Kruger specifically using the term vow or oath. Throughout this episode, you've heard about this Eldian king making some sort of peaceful vow. For the manga, it was thought that this was making a strong parallel by Kruger here, also bringing up this vow too, that either was his own vow or this vow connected to the attack Titan. Suddenly for the anime that's been wiped out. For the Kruger picture scene here, really just the Witsuit saving themselves a little bit of work. In the anime, you got the backside of the photo. Anyway, getting into why Eren Kruger chose Grisha. The anime cut out Kruger stressing the point about him leaving the wall. To be fair to this though, the anime now cuts back to that moment before Grisha ran out. There's some other stuff cut out about Dinah and Zeke too. Feels like the anime really just wanted to focus on Grisha's sister and that past action. Next anime cut panel, really interesting how they didn't include this line from Kruger. Kruger emphasized how both of them wanted freedom and paid the price for it. It is unknown whether Kruger was actually referring to the atrocities he committed, or if there was more to this. As for the story that Grisha began, really powerful line here, I really got chills from it. In the anime version, you could clearly see young Grisha looking back. He's like a little kid that definitely knew he just did something wrong. Then for fingerless Grisha gripping that photo. The anime changed this up so Grisha no longer has the sun behind him. You should notice why this was important in the manga. Throughout this chapter, the manga originally showed the sun 3 times total. The first time being behind Eren Kruger's attack Titan at the very start of the chapter. The second time, just used as a time transition. Then the third shot, almost showing this passing of the torch fully realized. The vow was now complete and the attack Titan officially shifting over to Grisha. Switching it over to Hange, hurriedly just mentioning Eren going through that phase. The anime really chose to focus on this. Notice Eren's eyes here, it really looks like this guy was almost in a trance. I do have to ask, who exactly was Eren mimicking here? I double checked, obviously Grisha didn't have the fingers to do that stance, but Kruger also didn't do that either. Keep in mind throughout this, Eren had been taking Kruger's position, sometimes Grisha too. So now who is this mysterious person? Feels like it could be a previous Attack Titan holder, someone who wasn't Grisha or Kruger, perhaps the Attack Titan world itself. I could totally picture the Attack Titan taking over Eren just so he doesn't mess up his name. By the way, credit to Crunchyroll for getting the subtitles right. If I recall, the episode preview instead had Attack on Titan for the translation. As for Hange trolling poor Eren here, come on, I really love the return of past Hange here. Her voice adds so much. The only detail cut out from Hange was her claiming she never went through a phase like this. Then, for some of the Hange Levi cut dialogue, anime Levi did claim that Hange's past chatter was punishment enough. The anime cut out Hange being confused about what was so bad about it. Levi then went on to say how consequences are important for an organization like the Survey Corps, even if they were only down to 9 people. However, they couldn't ignore the situation. A little bit later, Manga Levi doubled down on the Survey Corps not being in a position to punish Eren and Mikasa right now. As for Mikasa looking like complete crap, Eren commented on her looking thinner. Must have not been giving her enough protein in those jail meals. The anime really highlighted her dreadful face. Notably, she's even holding her head here. It's Mikasa having another Mikasa headache here. By the way, for Eren, it looked like this guy had his regular clothing on, minus the jacket. Looks like they gave Mikasa a sleeping gown here. Or is that the female jail attire? Next up, the trust shot here. Queen Historia has come for a visit. Naturally, the entire wall district has been updated for the anime. Last time you saw this building was in the Trust early arc in Attack on Titan Season 1. They should have rebuilt some of this since then. Anyway, getting into the Ymir stuff, 6 pages total in the manga. For the anime, it seems like you got a little bit of a mistranslation here, or at least it could have been worded better. The subtitles had Ymir's line as, "It won't be long until I die." In other words, death may be coming for her, but definitely more vague. In the Japanese dialogue, Ymir was much more explicit, that she would be dead after writing this letter. I think some anime-only people were confused by this. As for Ymir's actual flashback, I am so glad they didn't show the chunks again from Season 2. The anime really did make it obvious that something was going outside the walls back in Attack on Titan Season 2. Isayama wanted this change, so people started thinking about the outside sooner. Although I do recall some people thinking that it was either the king or government just tossing titans outside. Either way, it added to the mystery, and the anime did a fantastic job fleshing this chunk of the manga out, which was really bare bones. The anime highlighted the subject of Ymir followers bowing. This was earlier hinted on in the anime from the blonde titan that they found in the OVA, the one that could speak. That blonde titan was worshipping that scout that resembled Ymir's look. Even in Attack on Titan Season 2, where you were allowed to show more blood, Ymir's face definitely didn't look as messed up. You had Ymir really getting that Cersei Walk of Shame treatment. The more interesting part here was actually the background. Was this the Eldian ghettos at the time? Was it within Marley's main area? Did the internment zones for Eldians even exist at the time? Recall that Ymir mentioned being a Titan for around 80 years. In other words, that should have been fairly shortly after the Great Titan War. Although the question also comes up, how could Ymir have even possibly estimated this 80 years as a Titan? You should also notice how Isayama used the anime to fix a previous mistake for the Jaws Titan. The manga version of Ymir's mindless Titan and Jaws Titan looked exactly the same, which is even stranger since this chapter comes after Isayama established there being 9 special Titans. The Attack on Titan Season 2 anime now corrected this. They removed the claws, the sharp teeth, and overall made the pre-Jaws Titan skinnier. They had to remove the muscle. Then for Ymir waking back up in human mode, you got the view of the recent Titan path visualization. Originally only the first shot was actually in the manga, not what followed where you can see 8 pathways in the night sky. This does mean that at least back in Attack on Titan Season 2, Isayama was really planning ahead with this anime change. The only thing the anime completely left out was Ymir's worshipper Buddy's Titan. This was that previous same blonde Titan you saw in the Attack on Titan OVA. Years later, this thing still seemed to worship Ymir, or at least have regrets about it. As for that Titan static shock that Historia got, this was newly added for the Season 3 anime, and it definitely has some manga readers confused. Let me get back to this in a second. In the actual Titan vision or Titan memories that Historia got, notably it does stay on the Titan night sky shot for the longest, so this is really just Titan paths at work. The only new scene added here is a shot of Ymir being tied up, and also the new Mr. Piggy that's about to become the new Jaws Titan down below. This right here is freaking huge. I thought this looked familiar, and turns out I was right. This is actually a panel shot from chapter 93. In other words, something that will come in Attack on Titan Season 4. It should be around episode 2 or 3, depending on how they adapt this. Could this be a hint at the Wit Studio actually continuing Attack on Titan, and a studio change not happening? I would definitely put this in that bucket. Keep in mind Attack on Titan Season 3 should be drastically different. Ideally, they would want to start working on it early. Anyway, back to the new Historia anime scene. Why did this happen? I mean, Historia was already touching the dam later anyway. At the point this happened, Historia had just finished reading all of it. He saw something similar that Rod Rays did in Attack on Titan The Uprising arc. Rod Rays gave Eren the magic touch, then sparks were sent flying. At the time, this was both for Eren and Historia. Eren got this sudden rush of Titan memories, specifically from his papa Grisha. This largely hinted at a couple of key things. Early in the chapter, Grisha mentioned about how Royal Blood members are the ones who can use a Titan's full power. Eren, who's not from the Royal Blood family, can't even use the Founding Titan's coordinate ability. Second key thing, the importance of a specific location or item. For Eren, this was a Titan Crystal Cave, and in this episode, it was Ymir's letter. So all of this does make sense for Eren, the guy has 2 Titans. But how about for Historia? Historia has the royal juices inside of her, but what does that matter if she's not actually a Titan? Could this be hinting at Queen Historia becoming a Titan later on? That's one very likely possibility. The second option is that it could be possible for Titans, via this path concept, to pass over memories to a given Royal Blood Eldian. The second option almost makes it feel a little too random, or there for plot convenience. But let me know, which option do you buy? Do you have a different theory? Next major thing up, oh my god, they shoved Levi to the side. What the hell with Studio? Gotta group the Ackerman together, I suppose. Looks like that emblem on Queen Historia's back is grayish too now. Next up, getting into the courtroom scene. Surprisingly, this scene and dialogue was left mostly intact. For something the anime cut out for Zachary. Zachary originally mentioned they would hold a funeral, and there will also be a place made in honor for the 199 scouts that fell at a later date. I do love the shot of Hange stating they've stolen the Colossal Titan with Armin right behind her. That means you, buddy. Anyway, back in Flashback Land. There were 3 pages of the manga cut out. This included this Titan picture, which actually did make it into the episode ending. Eren and Kruger went over how Eldia previously used pure Titans as their main attacking force, these being weapons that the Founding Titan could easily make and control. These pure Titans made for the perfect killing machines, even when not controlled by the Founding Titan. In present day, these Titans are not being used to keep the Eldians inside of the walls from escaping. On the other hand, since Marley has been doing this for decades, Marley themselves can't get close to the island or walls. Currently, Marley allows the Eldians to live in special zones for 2 reasons. The first being for the Eldians to really serve as warriors, ones who inherit the special Titans. And then the second, even if Eldians don't become warriors, every single Eldian is +1 pure Titan that Marley could use in wars to attack their enemies. Back at the Marley side, over the years there's been this constant discussion about whether to just kill the Eldians instead of keeping them around. At the moment, that discussion has temporarily stopped. Kruger felt that sooner or later Marley would try to invade the island for resources. If Marley ever actually got the Founding Titan, then that discussion to just kill off all Eldians would come back up. So eventually these guys would be in danger again. Overall, this is really a good chunk left out. I got a feeling this might make it back in the next episode. Keep in mind the next episode is really only covering 1 chapter, and there's only so much new anime content you could make for an episode. So getting back into what the anime covered, the Eldian King supposedly said if Eldia sins again, then they should just perish. Originally the manga said that if Eldia burns the world again, which is now changed for the anime, really the anime highlighting the sins part. There were a couple things cut out from the King's message, that it's pointless to try to take the Founding Titan from him. This episode once again did not state him being the 145th King, and that the King agreed with the world's desire to see Eldia collapse. The anime now spliced in the shot of Kenny and his ex-buddies at the lake during Kruger's talk. He talked about the king being surrounded by the ignorant and preaching about paradise. Left out here was Kruger claiming that he didn't know the exact details about this peace vow, and that he doubted that the king was still using the Fritz name inside of the walls. For the anime, you really gotta love this transition from Grisha to Eren. It really hammers down how much Eren was affected by this, perhaps not even fully paying attention either. For Hange here, the anime cut out Hange stating how they in fact did know about the king's peace vow, unlike Kruger. Once again, Hange left out this being the 145th king detail. Naturally, Hange wouldn't have known this detail since it wasn't included in the notes. Then for Zachary's cut anime stuff, Zachary brought up the possibility of using the wall Colossal Titans in case of a major threat attacking. It was just too bad that this option was not currently on the table. Next up, a common confusion I see in this episode. I've seen so many people asking, why doesn't Eren just touch Historia a little bit? Or get the Serpent Core to inject her blood into him? And then I'm confused by the confusion. Eren actually stated in this episode the exact reason. He specifically needs to touch a Royal Blood Titan. Just by coincidence, he happened to touch a Royal Blood Titan at the end of Season 2. Great thing that Eren didn't punch someone else. Which was also another reason, by the way, why Kruger needed to not save Dinah. We needed her to be a Titan on the island for this to happen. As for Eren's thoughts about not revealing this secret, the anime cut out Eren further questioning this, that perhaps he was recalling some of the details wrong. Eren actually thought it would be best not to mention something half-assed here. And then getting into the final scene of Kruger revealing an Attack on Titan spoiler to Grisha. Thankfully this was kept 100% the same, So, if you enjoyed this super long video, please leave a colossal thumbs up, I would definitely appreciate it. If you do want to support the channel even more, you can sign up on crunchyroll.com/Foxen, or join up as a Patreon supporter. Become part of our Discord family and live streams. We always talk about fun topics like Attack on Titan, anime, Marvel movies, Japan, Japanese porn, and other fun stuff. So, post down below, how do you feel about the anime cutting so much to this episode? Is this stuff officially retconned? Or do you think it could come back later, maybe in season 4? Definitely check out my review on the actual episode if you haven't already. Don't forget about the summer anime season coming up. Check that out, especially my picks. What am I excited for? And I'll see you guys later.